Go.
Good morning, Cathy.
Good morning.
Good morning. You serve in a dual position that many will find difficult to believe. You are both our high school guidance counselor and our school media specialist. So you single-handedly run this library, and you also guide our upper-level students in preparing for a battery of challenging exams and applying to universities all over the world.
Mm.
And today we're going to talk about how in the world you do both of those things at the same time.
Yeah.
The people watching this video, especially my educator friends, are probably saying to themselves, how is that possible?
Mm.
Those are mutually exclusive positions. They are both very full-time positions. And that's true, and I often ask myself how it is that you manage to do that. But before we get into that, let's rewind just a bit. If I'm correct, this is your 7th year serving at Bethlehem Evangelical Academy, right?
Yeah.
I remember hiring you in a summer that was particularly tough for our school. And you may not know this entire context, but earlier that year we had lost pretty much our entire international team when visas became almost impossible to obtain. The group we lost included a reading specialist from the UK, multiple American classroom teachers, and an administrative assistant whose position wasn't even filled until several years later. I remember my wife and I praying together for both God's grace and for new staff candidates. When your name was given to us by one of our best English teachers on campus, the news seemed almost too good to be true. You were a native English speaker, married to a local man, and you had multiple degrees in counseling. Do I have all that story correct?
True.
Okay, good. When you joined the BEA team, Cathy, our oldest students were in the 8th grade. And during the past 7 years, you have served under 3 different principals, and you've worked directly with me and the other team as we've shaped the high school program. You have assisted with our first 2 commencement ceremonies, and you also keep up with our alumni group, representing BEA graduates who are studying, I believe, in 10 different countries at present.
Yeah.
Which I could not believe when I counted that up because we've only had 2 graduations.
Yeah. Small classes as well. So
yeah, and it's not even 20 people. How many total graduates do we have?
17, 6.
That's incredible.
17.
In 10 different countries they're studying.
It is.
So you've done all of this in an unstable situation that has included multiple conflicts, a global pandemic,
COVID.
and now over a year, 13 months of wartime conditions.
Yeah.
So this leads me to our first big question. The country has endured more than a year of war. Your background is in trauma counseling. Is that a proper way to put it?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you call it?
In the UK, it's called social work, but social work there and social work here and social work in the States is not the same.
Okay.
So what a social worker is in the UK is closest to what a counsellor is both here and in the States.
Okay.
So I say counsellor. Yeah.
What are the biggest issues that our students and our teachers and our families face here?
I think you touched on it, exactly what you said. It is just the collective trauma of generations of war and of unpredictable circumstances. Our students from 1st grade through 12th, even the kindergarten through 12th, don't know what next week looks like. They don't know what next month, next year looks like. So when they're growing and when they're trying to study at these really important during these really important years, they're trying to grow and to become themselves, but they don't know what their external circumstances are or what they're going to be. And they really, after 7 years, now I see it clearer than ever, they don't know what they're going to find in their lives. They don't know who they can become if they don't know the security or the safety around them. And it's really challenging. It's a privilege to know them and to help them go through that, but it's immensely challenging. And as somebody who grew up in the UK, I can only imagine what that feels like daily. Daily waking up and just asking yourself, what's today going to be like? I just want to go and have fun with my friends. I just want to spend time with my families, but what am I going to find? In terms of staff and families, it's the same. I'm a parent. I had both my babies here. One is 4 and one is 1, and I'm getting a glimpse into what family feels like in a different culture to my own, but also in an unpredictable environment where people are dealing with generations of stress, collective stress, cumulative stress, social issues. There's many things. Okay. It's challenging, but I would say I cannot talk about the trauma that I see in the local community without speaking about the resilience that I see in the local community, in our school, in our students, our
Absolutely.
staff, our administration.
That is so true. Yeah.
I think they're more resilient as a people than I've seen anywhere in the world, honestly. And
I feel the same.
Yeah, they find joy in tiny things, kicking a plastic bottle cap in the playground outside. They find joy in their relationships more than other countries do, because sometimes that's all that they have.
Yeah. Cathy, you chose to become a follower of Jesus as a high school student, correct? Mm-hmm. And why is it important for students to hear the gospel message at this age? This is the age that you're working with. You're working with kids that are what, 13 through 18 approximately?
If I look at my own journey, if I hadn't have made that decision, and if I hadn't have had godparents and mentors and youth leaders at that age, I don't think that I would still be walking with Jesus, because it is such a what's the word? It's such a key age. It's such a transformative age. If you make a decision about something so important at that age, something that really kind of changes the trajectory of your life, then there's a high chance, and in my case, it happened this way, that decision will stay with you for a long time. And I've really felt that living here, as well as my university days, my studying, my vocation, that the decision that I made back then really took me on one path, whereas actually if I hadn't have made that decision, I could have been on a different path. That would have been great, but it would not have led me to what God wants me to be and do and have. So I love working with young people. I would love to be able to see our young people in 20 years' time, to see not the benefits or the effects of the work that I've had with them, but just where they end up, because they're asking such important questions. What do I want to do? Where do I want to study? Who are my people and my community going to be? I want to see what that will look like for them.
There's no question that what we're doing here at Bethlehem Evangelical Academy is unique.
Yeah.
For one thing, we have an emphasis on critical thinking.
Yeah.
That really sets us apart, I think, from a lot of regional schools. Just this week, a couple of parents have told me how they can't believe the way that we focus on individual students and consider their needs. I had a dad say that just yesterday to me in a meeting. Of course, our big distinctive is that the Word of God informs nearly every aspect of our school day. Why do you think that BEA's educational philosophy is important, especially now?
I would add to that something that I have seen and been proud of. My son is doing his second year in the kindergarten. And I think that from the beginning, another thing that is part of our philosophy is that we use the Word of God to look at what is our character, who are we? Are we people who have integrity? Are we people who are kind to others? Are we intrinsically motivated or not? And I think that sets BEA apart, because it's very easy when times are tough, both in the West and in the Middle East, to leave character to the side and just to get the job done, just to go through school, run through the motions, graduate and live a life that you want to live. But actually, when we're teaching children who you are is as important, if not more important, than all those other things. Everything else comes out of who we are as who our character is. So I'm proud of that. Some of my favourite conversations with children, with small children in the library, as well as high school students, is about that very idea of who are you, who do you want to be, what's your identity?
And of course there are rough edges to this whole process.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was working as a youth pastor back in the States, where I was for about 10 years. And I had, these high moments of frustration. I remember one time at a youth conference, I had taken a big group of students in a van to this place, and I was running on very little sleep, lots of coffee.
Yeah.
And I said to one of the head youth pastors at this really large church, I was like, this is just so hard, that there are so many issues that we're dealing with simultaneously. And he said something to me that I've never forgotten. He said, Jeff, you have to realize that youth ministry is messy. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
anytime you're working with people, it's messy. You have people with different perspectives, different opinions. And of course, here, we're dealing with both people from the East and the West all in one place. But I have come to really almost embrace that messiness.
Yeah.
It's fun to see the way these kids interact
Absolutely.
And I don't know, it's so beautiful, and I love watching them grow up. Cathy, we're sitting in a library that is particularly special to me. And I think you know this, but when my family and I were getting ready to come here back in 2014, I had quite a large personal library in my home. It was mostly children's books because I love juvenile fiction.
Yeah.
And I donated about 1,000 of our books to come help start this library, in addition to some that were donated by other churches. And over the years, many of our supporting churches have collected books and brought them over in suitcases. And I always think about that, people who are lugging these things
through the airport,
literally onto airplanes and through baggage checks and that sort of thing, just so that we can have what we have here.
Yeah.
You have overseen the electronic cataloging process, chiefly. That's one of the big things you've done over these years. And I believe we now have well over 12,000 books on these shelves. Is that about more?
More.
Yeah. Talk about the growth of our school's literacy program and how students have come to check out increasing numbers of books.
I think it starts exactly where you said. It starts with a communal, a collective effort just to physically be able to do this. Libraries in our area are not common. Most schools don't have them. Other international curriculum schools don't necessarily have them. So that's been the first consideration. But I think more than that, I have been part of championing reading as a way of life or a habit or a hobby, an interest, so that the library is not just a period in the week where you go to the library, you check out books, you go home, you read them or you don't read them, and you come back the next week. But actually, I think that teachers have helped me to encourage students that reading is part of their learning English as a second language, not just through completing homework and writing logs and doing reports, but also through encouraging them and cheering them on. Good job, like you read a book that you wouldn't have been able to read a year ago.
As our high school guidance counselor, Cathy, you help students as they make university choices. You guide them as they choose exams, particularly the CLEP exam. And you spend untold hours putting high school transcripts together by hand because our school doesn't currently have software for doing that. What motivates you to do these things, and what do you find rewarding in the process?
I've shared this story with a couple of colleagues that when I was in 8th grade, I had a teacher who I wasn't troublesome as a student. I grew up in a very good family and I was brought up well, but I just was not pushed and I was getting a bit bored in class. And I had a teacher come and she pulled me out and she gave me a good talking to, and she said, what are you doing? You need to be making better choices. She just gave me that motivational encouragement. And again, that just changed part of the trajectory of my life, educationally, career-wise. And I think it's things like that I think to myself, I have an opportunity right in front of me to do the same for just one other person, for one student or more. And also, since choosing to follow God, I think that I have had a gut instinct that I have a right and a privilege to be able to contribute to my community. My life is not just about me and having a nice house and a nice car and a nice family.
What people may not realize is that you, as a British citizen, although you have this big background in social work and counseling, you've had to do this additional leap to become fluent in an entirely new system of counseling, which is basically American-style high school guidance counseling. Yeah. And you've even taken courses from College Board in order to understand our
system.
exams.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, in many ways, it's very familiar. It's Western education. It's considering a lot of the things that I would have considered in the UK when I was a student. But I never worked in education in the UK. So, it's been, I've learned a lot. It's been really helpful. And I do think that in all of the different things that I've done, living in the Middle East, In all of the different aspects of my role at BEA and all of the different ways that I've lived in the local community, there are always things that have meaning and have consequences for other things.
Yeah, sure.
So I think that when I'm working with students here, there's many aspects of my training in the UK, my educational journey in the UK that I lean on and I use.
You and your family have chosen to relocate at this time. Can you tell me a bit about what motivated that decision?
Yes, so I moved to the Middle East when we got married in 2018, and at that point there was no other vision for what we would do. Like that's what we both wanted, my husband and I. Our families were supportive, and we never made this decision for life, and we never made it for a set period of time as well. And as a cross-cultural family unit, we have an inherent element of transient. Nothing is forever.
Yeah.
But we never planned, before this war, we never planned to leave. I was very happy. Our kids are happy here. We live in quite a extended family unit with my in-laws close by, sister-in-laws close by, children, cousins, and it's wonderful. But the war has brought huge professional challenges, huge family challenges, huge financial challenges. For me, it's been really difficult with my mental health. I've felt very, very stressed. And we got to a point over the summer when my husband and I were actually in Ireland, where we had very extended conversations about what do we do, how do we respond to this, how much do we carry on with dealing with life in inside war conditions when we don't have the ability to change things. We're safe, we're grateful, but we have an opportunity to go and pursue another option. My husband has a business, he's self-employed, and he's always wanted to pursue part of his business also being in another country. So that's a consideration. So there are lots of elements. There's an excitement, but there's a sadness. And I've not known living in Bethlehem without working at BEA.
Cathy, one of the reasons that we're having this interview today is so that I can solicit prayer, support on your behalf. What would you like people to focus on as they take the time to lift up you and your family in prayer?
I think that we are praying just for the war to come to an end, for a population on all sides that have already suffered too much. Some of our concerns or anxieties at the moment are that the practicalities of moving internationally with two small children and me going into a new work in the UK, or picking up work that I used to do in the UK but I've been out of the system for 6-7 years, are things that we'd love people to pray for a good transition of saying goodbye to the community, or see you later to the community, see you soon. Me being able to put a line in the sand with the tasks that I do in school, with kind of honouring the students, honouring the families, and being able to make a transition for the school for after I've gone. And then just in the future that we can continue coming here, that I would have the ability to keep coming here, that my husband and our children will be able to keep coming back, and that will feel fluid and comfortable.
Those are all great prayer requests, and we will be praying for them. I will be, and I'm sure a lot of others will too. Cathy, I just want to thank you again for taking the time to sit for this interview today. And
Thank you,
on behalf of the school, I want to thank you for the investment that you have made into the lives of hundreds of students over the past 7 years. And I think we corporately, but I personally am also saying, may the Lord bless you and your family in a special way as you move to your next place of service. Thank you so much.